You sit down to do one thing, and within minutes, your mind gets tugged towards stray tabs and tiny tasks. You come back to the main work, but the edges feel duller, as if part of your attention is still elsewhere. That drag is attention residue, and it quietly kills deep work. Time is your inventory, but energy is the electricity that makes inventory produce value. You can guard a 2-hour block on your calendar and still ship nothing if voltage keeps leaking into other circuits. The fix is not heroic willpower, it is electrical hygiene. Treat your day like a panel with a limited power supply, one live line at a time. Everything else off until you flip a deliberate switch. Under the hood, initiation and focus ride on a simple triad. Dopamine is the go signal that nudges you to start and rewards visible progress. Noradrenaline raises alertness, so signal stands out from noise. Too little, and you are sleepy. Too much, and you are jittery. Acetylcholine narrows the spotlight so you can hold a representation in working memory without slipping off it. Rapid context switches ping novelty dopamine while leaving open loops from the task you just abandoned. Each switch jolts the alerting system and forces the spotlight to detach and reattach, which costs seconds and precision. The loss hides in plain sight because your hands keep moving, but fidelity drops. Recall blurs, micro-decisions stall, error rates climb. Ambiguity multiplies the loss. When a previous task remains unresolved, a slice of working memory keeps a sticky note alive, which saps focus on the current target. Delayed rewards worsen it. When the present task has no near-term finish line, the brain hunts for easier hits, which makes switching feel logical even as it degrades depth. A few comforting myths keep the leaks alive, so let's reframe them in place. Multitasking seems to save time because it avoids the discomfort of staying with one thing long enough to meet friction. The clock collects the debt later through rework and restarts. Variety does keep you engaged across a day, not across a minute. Rapid variety feeds the start circuit and starves the focus circuit. Being good at switching signals you have trained the jump reflex. Not that you are immune to residue. The subjective feeling of speed is not the same as the objective quality of output. Notifications do keep you responsive if your job is to be on call. If your job is to build, you cannot be a lighthouse and a welder in the same moment without blinding yourself. Evidence is steady rather than dramatic, which is exactly what matters for habits. Experiments on task switching show reliable switch costs even on trivial rule changes. With compounding penalties across a session, and accuracy takes the biggest hit once you add a layer of complexity. Field and lab work on unfinished goals shows that when people leave tasks incomplete, representations of those goals stay cognitively active and intrude on the next activity. When they create a concrete plan or reach a visible closure point, the intrusion drops. Studies on interruption and resumption find that it takes longer to re-establish pre-interruption speed, and that people remember less about what they were doing just before the interruption. You do not need the exact percentage to act. The pattern is enough. Ambiguous, unfinished work keeps a background thread alive. Clean closure and near-term markers release capacity. Multiply small switches by an entire morning, and the fog makes sense. Bring this down to today with 2 levers that change chemistry without needing a new system. First, lower start friction. Friction is the distance between you and your first visible win. If beginning requires finding the right file, picking the correct version, and deciding which paragraph to edit, you have built a ramp that invites detours. Shrink the ramp before the session begins. Put the exact file and the exact section on screen, and define a single micro-action you can execute in 30 seconds, such as rewriting one sentence to restate the problem in your own words, or drafting a placeholder claim you will tighten later. Tiny closures create progress dopamine that sustains engagement without chasing novelty. Treat the on-ramp as a separate micro-task you finish before you start the real work, not as a vague hope that you will feel ready once you sit down. Second, bundle contexts. Instead of treating each ping as urgent, group actions by type and route them to predictable windows. Messages, scheduling, and approvals each get their own short block. Put those blocks at stable times so your brain learns when urges will be satisfied. While you are in a deep block, you are not ignoring everything. You are running a rule that says this valve opens later. If genuinely urgent issues must break through, build one backdoor, a single person, a single channel, or a timed calendar alarm that can interrupt you for a clear reason. That backdoor helps the alert system relax. because it trusts that true emergencies have a known path, and it keeps every other path closed. Depth also depends on how you define the unit of work. Work on the report is an ambiguity trap that keeps acetylcholine from locking on. Convert it into a visible finish line. Draft the problem statement of Section 2 in 6 sentences is concrete. Audit chart labels against sources and mark discrepancies in red is concrete. The brain loves an unmistakable finish because finished items stop generating residue. If you cannot make the whole project specific, make the first 30 minutes of it specific. 1 minute of plain language notes can reveal the next action that removes hidden choices. But remember that the note is the ramp, not the work. Now run a clean 20-minute sequence that builds voltage instead of bleeding it. Set a visible timer for 20 minutes and place it where you can see the countdown in peripheral vision. Write a single sentence outcome for this slice that could be verified aloud at the end, such as rewrite the opening paragraph in active voice with a sharper claim. Close or hide every window that does not contribute to that outcome and open exactly one document to edit. Begin with a 30-second primer. Type a short restatement of the problem to reattach your mental model. Work the outcome until the timer reaches 3 minutes remaining. Then create a micro-closure you can see, such as a V1 saved note in the file or a visible done tag beside the paragraph. Use the final minute to leave breadcrumbs for the next slice. Write the next step in brackets right where you will continue, like next, tighten sentence 3. When the timer ends, look away from the screen for 30 seconds, breathe normally, and do one tiny reward that ends quickly, such as checking a box on paper or taking a sip you enjoy. The slice counts as success only if the outcome line is true at the buzzer. If it is not true, run one more slice with a fresh outcome line. Mid-slice urges will show up. Do not wrestle them in your head, externalize them. Keep a capture box always available. Type the urge in a few words and end with a route, like bucket. Admin at 14:30. This reduces arousal because you are not suppressing, you are scheduling. If the thought carries emotional weight, add a one-sentence plan. For example, email Sarah with 2 options and decide in the 3 o'clock slot. Plans create psychological closure that drains residue. If the thought belongs to the current task, check whether acting on it advances the present outcome. If not, capture and return. Measure what matters so you know the leaks are shrinking. Minutes are a poor signal because you can spend them while leaking. Completions are better. One completion is a page edited to a visible V1 done tag, not 12 minutes of keystrokes. One completion is a design mock saved to a named version, not a hazy sense of progress. Track completions on a small visible tally that resets daily. Aim for 3 to 5 meaningful completions and treat anything above that as a bonus. If you finish those units without feeling fried, voltage is being routed well. If you collect 10 partials and nothing closed, the residue is back, and the fix is to make the next unit smaller and the finish line clearer. Avoid the trap of absolutism. No switching ever is neither realistic nor necessary. The rule is separation with gates. Shallow work has a place, but it needs fences. You avoid mixing contexts inside the same 20-minute block. Ambiguity is the amplifier of residue. Gates reduce ambiguity by bundling similar actions and finishing them in small sealed units. When deep time and shallow time stop bleeding into each other, both improve, because the brain can predict what kind of work the next block requires and can tune chemistry accordingly. If you want a quick proof you can feel today, take the next hour and run 3 slices back to back on one meaningful task. Before you start, write 3 outcome sentences on a card. Silence every channel except your single backdoor. Place the card where you can see it. Run slice 1, verify the outcome, draw a small box and tick it. Run slice 2 and slice 3 the same way. At the end, count ticks and notice the difference in mental clarity. The lift you feel is not motivation magic. It is the removal of open loops and the stabilization of the focus spotlight. Many people discover that 3 clean finishes do more for momentum than a messy afternoon of multitasking. When you re-enter the wider day, expect relapse moments. You will want to peek, answer, and jump. Do not frame that as failure. Treat it as an engineering fault that needs a better guard. Capture the urge, route it to the next bundle, and rewrite your current outcome line in one sentence. You are not forcing attention, you are designing it. The more your environment makes the next right action the easiest action, the less you lean on willpower, and the more your voltage stays on the single line that matters. If this resonated, run the 3-slice test today, then tell me one concrete unit you finished. If you want more, the subscribe button exists. But the real move is simple. Protect a single block, finish one visible unit, and let the residue drain so the next block starts clean.